الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الأطيبين الأنجبين بهم نتولى ومن أعدائهم نتبرأ إلى الله. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. One of the secrets or the tips to success is that no matter what field we step into, may that be studies, may that be job, may that be work, whatever, we have to learn from our mistakes. And there are a lot of mistakes in whatever stage we are in. And we must not worry about losing. Losing is that mirror which clearly shows that all of the wrong and false clearly. So unless we have these mistakes, we cannot improve ourselves. We don't need to worry a lot of what the consequences or what the results are going to be. Because the teaching that we have, it's that we are not bound to what the results are going to be. We just do the job properly, correctly, do the duty. Now whatever the consequences are going to be. If you analyze this battle of Karbala, according to the worldly calculations, it's whoever sees would say that it's a failure. 72 on one side and you've got thousands on the other side. All of them over here were killed. So based upon the calculations, it is as such. But the teaching is that we are not bound to what the results are going to be. Ma'mur bi wazifa nistim. The consequences, whatever they are, let them be. So the great men, they always see their defeat as a bridge to success so that they are not repeated in the future. Those mistakes, they are not repeated. Now they don't recognize defeat as defeat, but fear, and that not seeing the defeats would psychologically ruin them. And many a times you find that if we don't lose, if there are no defeats in our affairs, that would end up in kibr, in pride, in ghurur, that again, it's a disease. So when we constantly find that there is wrong, there is correction required, we find that we are weak and we need to correct ourselves constantly, and that way that kibr also will be put aside. Looking into history, most of the success were after defeats. That is, so many defeats. Because of it, losers, those who lost, they became stronger personalities in intention, and higher ambitious, and they moved forward. Or as they say, girte hain shah sawar bhi maidane jang mein, that it's the strong, it's the mighty, or it's those who are able, they fell. And it's by these felling, by these mistakes which they make, they learn. In the battle of Uhud, due to just one disobedience which the Muslims had to the Prophet, they saw that defeat. But it was so educational that it changed that to every success from then on. Napoleon, he says that I was defeated so many times that by these defeats I learned to defeat others. So that again, it's not bad. If there is wrong, if there is correction required, if we lose, from that we learn to become better. Or for example, a baby, when he starts to walk, falls down so many times. He has to fall a lot. He has to see, he has to bear the pain. He has to know what is sharp, what is not sharp, what is harmful, what is not. So the more he falls, the more corrections he makes, the stronger he becomes. And it is widely known that defeat for the weak, it's poisonous, and for the strong, it's like feathers to success. And in Islam, we talked about this more than on one occasion, that Losing hope, it's a sin itself. So, if there is a correction required that needs to be corrected, and that too, it's for our own betterment. With reference to the concept of guidance, we have a hadith from the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. Rasulullah says that an-naqisu mal'oon. So, what is the meaning of this small hadith? An-naqis mal'oon. Naqis means someone who is imperfect. Naqis means incomplete. Naqis is the opposite of kamil, which is perfect, which is complete. Or naqis means less. Naqis means minor. And according to Quran, man, however much he lives in this world, he has to blossom, he has to grow. For example, if someone lives for 80 years, lives for 100 years, that 100 years has to grow in his soul as well. It shouldn't be as such that a human being has grown to 100 years, but in reality he's a 1-year-old kid, 1-year-old child. That cannot be the case. If you recall your memories, we talked on this many times, and that is this human body, this existence that Allah has given to us, it's of two types. We have a moral existence and we have a material existence. Material existence is this human body. Spiritual or the moral existence is that soul, and the two are together. And whatever rizq is given to this human body, that human soul also requires rizq that has to be given to that. Rizq for that human soul, it's all this servitude, worships, du'as, prayers, services, akhlaq, ethics, ahkam, do's, don'ts, all that is that soul, rizq for that soul which has to be given to it. If we don't give it, we find that the body is growing, the soul is not. Here says that that human body which has grown to 100 years and has gained a weight of whatever, 180, 90 kilograms, but that soul has remained to that 1-year-old kid, that is wrong. That is naqis. When it says an-naqisu mal'oon, it is that an individual, that human being whose body has grown and the soul has not grown. And in reality, that tiny soul is a captive in that human body, which is not fair. That we have taken that soul into captivity of this human body. Body is so large and the tiny soul dwelling in it. Now this, again, one who has no ma'rifah. Now again, ma'rifat, it's the teachings that we have, knowing the usul deen, that is the oneness of God, His justice, belief in the prophethood, belief in imamat, belief in qiyamat, that is ma'rifah. Knowing himself, that is ma'rifah. So one who has no ma'rifah is misled and is worse than animals. We have ayat in Quran which talk about this. And in this regard, our sixth Imam, he describes as such, says that someone who is naqis, that is, someone whose body has grown, whose soul has not blossomed, such an individual is a shameless person who sat and ate on the Almighty's table and never understood anything, never grew or never blossomed. When we talk about this issue that a person has to get married, that is because by that marriage he blossoms. So long as he is single, he never blossoms. Once that wedlock takes place, he starts growing. He's not a one person anymore. He's a public property. Before the wedding, he was just one. Now he has to take care of his wife, his in-laws, brothers, sisters, brother-in-law, sister-in-law. So all that entity, that huge big community, he has to live in. So that's where he starts blossoming and growing. How he should be living, how he should be spending, how he should be going, how that cleanliness has to be taken place, etc., etc. So that's where a person starts to grow. And one may say that this 80-year-old man who has grown has a family, has offsprings, and furthermore grandchildren, and so the answer is that the animals also do that. Or in reality, when Quran says that someone who has grown himself and his soul has not grown, that person is worse than animals. If you look into the animal kingdom, animals, they may reproduce to 7, 8 or 10 every year, multiply. Or if you look into the seas, the fish, a fish may lay as many as 10,000 eggs, and again in a few months' time, you find that those babies, they again lay eggs, they hatch, and by the end of the year, maybe millions of fish, they come into existence. So that fish and that animal is much better than this man who has grown, his soul has not grown. Over here again, he is worse than those animals. So, the Prophet says that an-naqis mal'oon. That is, this report that one who has grown, who has not educated his mind and his soul, is mal'oon. When we say mal'oon, it means that he is deprived from that special share of mercy of Allah. Someone who is deprived. Or elsewhere says that man, he is maghboon. Maghboon means he is sustaining a huge big loss. And for that, our seventh Imam, Kazim alayhi salam, says that man istawa yawmahu fahuwa maghboon. Someone whose 2 days are alike, he is maghboon. That is, he is at loss. For example, Saturday, Sunday, 2 days. If the performance of this individual on that Saturday was exactly the same as his performance on Sunday, Imam says he is maghboon, he is at loss. Now what does it mean? It means that human being, man, he has to grow constantly, he has to blossom, he has to become better and better than his previous day. If my performance of my actions and deeds, my ethics, my akhlaq today was, for example, 5 kilograms, tomorrow it has to be a little bit more, a few grams more. If it was exactly the same, Imam says, maghboon, you have lost. So how do we top it up? If you have some recitals, if you have some du'as, if you have some prayers, have a little bit done more each day so that it's a bit more than the previous day. It's not exactly the same. Or the divine command in the Holy Quran says that the weight of our performance, of our actions, it has to increase. I'll read this hadith from our seventh Imam. He says that man istawa yawmahu fahuwa maghboon. Someone whose 2 days are alike, he is at loss. وَمَنْ كَانَ آخِرُ يَوْمَيْهِ شَرَّهُمَا فَهُوَ مَلْعُونَ. Says that someone whose the end of the second day was bad. That is, I observed the first day, I was a good person. The second day also, almost there, nearer to the time of Maghrib, I lost temper. Or I shifted. Did not observe as it was yesterday. Here Imam says, فَهُوَ مَلْعُونَ. He is deprived from that special share of mercy. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَعْرِفْ الزِّيَادَةَ فِي نَفْسِهِ فَهُوَ فِي نُقْصَانٍ. And if I did not calculate my performance yesterday, calculate my performance today, and did not know which one of these 2 days was better or worse, says, فَهُوَ فِي نُقْصَانٍ. Over here again, there's a loss. وَمَنْ كَانَ إِلَى النُّقْصَانِ فَالْمَوْتُ خَيْرٌ لَهُ مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ. Imam says, if you find that your 2 days are alike, but you've got your second day lesser than the first day, for such an individual, dying is better than living. Because life Allah has given, and we have to desire and hope and request to live longer, so that our performance also increases. Our actions, our good actions, they are more. So the more a person lives, the more good he does. If we find that, God forbid, there is bad which is increasing in our life, so So it's better to die. Why? Because the price which Allah has set for this human being is the heaven. And we, by the wrong that we do, we are knocking down our own price from that heaven to whatever lowest level we get to. Quran says, فَالْوَزْنُ يَوْمَئِذٍ الْحَقِّ فَمَنْ ثَقُلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Wazn is that scale. And that scale depends on the performance, on the actions of an individual. Says that scale, that wazn, that balance, it's haq, it's right. And whosoever increases in his actions, in his performance, however much it was possible for him, says, فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. They are the successful. On the contrary, says that, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ خَسِرُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ بِمَا كَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا يَظْلِمُونَ. And those whose actions were light, فَأُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ خَسِرُوا. They are the losers. They are those who sustain that loss onto their lives. بِمَا كَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا يَظْلِمُونَ. If you look into this whole creation that Allah has, instructions, Imams, the Prophet says, an-naqis mal'oon. Someone who has a shortfall, who is incomplete, he is mal'oon. Now if a person himself, he does not grow, he does not learn, he does not practice, his actions are not there, definitely he is cursed by the Prophet. Now what he does is that, himself he is zalim, he is committing this oppression on himself. And if he does get married, gets a spouse, if she is practicing, stops her from practicing, again another zulm. The offsprings from this wedlock are going to be children who will not be practicing, another zulm. We find that this entity of zulm is just increasing. From one person to 4 persons, grandchildren again, the same thing. So it's a package of zulm which is just increasing. So zulm means not justice. We believe for the Imam to return, there have to be this justice or people who are just in a certain quantity for him to return. So every day we have to improve. Something more, good, better prayers. Or if we have said our prayers and we are saying our prayers, at least we have to improve in the quality of that prayer. It was mentioned the other day how we can improve the quality. One of the other tips is that when you perform your sajda, perform it on the clay of the grave of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. Riwayat says that when you perform this one sajda, and it is on that dust of the grave of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, it enlightens the earth, the 7 layers of it, just by that one forehead which is being put onto that dust of the clay of Abu Abdullah. Now what exactly it means we do not know. Or continue saying that with that one sajda of yours, the 7 skies they are enlightened. That is that forehead which Allah has given to us. The right of this forehead is that it has to bow down before Allah. It must bow down before Allah. And that is that ultimate obedience that a person can show towards the Almighty Allah. Now if we are praying, the quality has to be increased. And that is whatever is possible, we have to keep on continuing. And all that again is a lesson to myself first. So if it is study better than the day before. If it is understanding the ayat of Quran, try to understand better than what it was before. Or reducing in sins gradually, repenting sincerely, visiting the ill, easing problems, increase in the love towards Ahlul Bayt, towards each other, etc., etc. And now this, when we talk about all this goodness, it's not just for a day or two. It is min al-mahdi ila al-lahd. That is, it's from the day we were born, from the cradle to the grave, all this has to be observed. The majalis that are held for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, they are great. And it is a special grace of Allah towards the mu'mineen that we get together here. And we have amazing riwayat which say that many a times our intentions were that we did not want to attend, and all these doors they closed, maybe the car broke down, maybe the job did not allow, so on and so forth. But ultimately we end up in that majlis. How is that? How does that happen when we did not want to come, or the barriers were there which did not allow us to come? Here Ma'soom says that the angels, they bring us here to our destination so that we also get together and mourn for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, which is that great blessing to us. Says that these are the best of majalis, hold them, remember us. Verily, someone who remembers us, and by being reminded of us, if his eye secretes a tear, as tiny as the wing of a fly, which a person cannot even see, it's so tiny. Imam says that his sins will be forgiven, just for that little tiny tear which secretes from his eye, and however many those sins are. Or elsewhere says that one who remembers us and his eyes were grieved, Allah will make the fire, the hellfire, haram on him, on his face, just for that grief which we portray to the household of the Prophet. Or says that nafasul mahmoom li zulmina tasbih wa hammuhu lana ibadah. A beautiful hadith, and in another report says that this hadith should be written with gold. Now what does it mean? It says that the breath of one who is aggrieved upon the injustice and oppression, the zulm on Ahlul Bayt, is tasbih. That is when we sit here and we remember and mourn the Ahlul Bayt, the sorrow which they saw, our every breath, it's tasbih. And his conceal is tasbih. وَهَمُّهُ لَنَا عِبَادَةً. And when we strive and come and attend these majalis over here, all that is classified as worship. And riwayat says that for a gathering where we intend to learn and to educate ourselves, there we sit on the feathers and the wings of the angels. Furthermore says that from your home till your destination, you traveled every step, your feet or your cars today, they are on the wings and the feathers of the angels, and it is that great blessing which Allah has towards someone who establishes and observes these majalis. In one of the debates that we find between Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam and Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, Amirul Mu'mineen says to his son Abu Abdullah, who is a child at that time, says that, Hussein, I've got 70 qualities which the Prophet has directly mentioned to me. There is no sharik, there is no match to it, there is no like to it, and there is no second person who possesses them. All of them are mine. What do you have? Let's see. He lists 70 qualities. I'll just mention a few over here. Says, kaffahu wa kaffay fil adl sawa. That is, Amirul Mu'mineen, his hand and the plates in the scale of balance, says they are two, they're equal. There is no one more just than Amirul Mu'mineen. Says, akhi fid dunya wal akhirah. That is, Ali is my brother in this dunya and in the hereafter. Says, Ali khairul bashar. He is the best of human beings, best of men. Or says, Ali hitta babu hittatin man dakhalahu kana mu'mina kana amina. Says that Ali is the door of Hitta. Babu hittatin, during the time of Prophet Musa, when Bani Israel, they had created all that mess, as a result of which they were punished, and they were told to repent. Says, how do we repent? Says, Musa will make a door, an arch, and there each one person will come to that arch and say hittatun. It's like these metal detectors you have. You come there and it detects. Says that they used to come to that arch and say hittatun. Hitta was that repentance, that tawbah. And that tawbah was accepted, and they used to cross that arch and come to the other side, and there they were blessed with all the sustenance, food and drinks that were given to them, that came for them from the heavens. Says that Ali babu hittatin, that is, whosoever wants to be forgiven, come to Ali. Says Rasulullah has said that for me. And continues with all the qualities. For example, Aliyun ma'al Quran wal Quran ma'a Ali. He is with Quran and Quran is with Ali, so on and so forth. And then says, Hussein, what do you have? These are my qualities which the Prophet has mentioned. He says, Father, what I possess you don't, nor you can ever. Says, come on, tell me, what are they? Says, Father, I've got a father like Ali. Do you have? I have a mother like Zahra. Do you have? There he lost. Performance of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein regarding the Shias. That again, it's amazing. Qais ibn Musahhar, one of the representatives of Abu Abdullah, he is sent to deliver a message, and the message of his shahadat is brought back to Abu Abdullah. And here when Imam gets the message that Qais has died, Imam has this dua. Says, Allahumma ja'al lana wa li shi'atina indaka manzalan kariman wajma' baynana wa bayna shi'atina fi mustaqarrin min rahmatik. Says that Allah make it as such that we and our Shias are placed in one place before you, with you. An exalted place, وَجْمَعْ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَ شِيعَتِنَا فِي مُسْتَقَرٍ مِّن رَحْمَتِكَ, that keep us together in your mercy, O God. إِنَّكَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. Or once the Prophet, he kissed Imam Mujtaba on his lips, and then kisses Abu Abdullah on his neck. Here the two children, they have a talk, and they come home and say that to their mother, that our grandfather loves Mujtaba, which is Imam Hassan, more because he kissed him on his lips. Loves Hussein lesser than him because he kissed him on his neck. Hazrat Zahra comes straight to her father. Says, Father, I have a complaint. This is what the children are saying. Hussein says that you love Hassan more. Why is it that? He says, the reason why I kissed Hassan on his lips, because my Hassan will be poisoned through those lips. And then says, the reason why I kissed Hussein on his neck, it's because Hussein will be beheaded. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is that ark which is vast. Safinatul Hussein awsa wa asra. It will get to your destination fast. No matter however much wrong we may have committed, we don't need to tell that to anyone. None of our sins are greater than the sins of Hur. His sin was real great. He invited Imam to Karbala, but he was forgiven because he repented sincerely. He returned to the Imam. We also have done a lot of wrong. Our wrong is not more than Hur. God, by these tears that are shed for Abu Abdullah, forgive us. All the wrong that we have done, forgive us. Because Hussein is that ship which will take us to our destinations fast. It takes everyone and everything on board. Among the personalities we can talk about, over here it's Haj Mirza Khalil, says that how it happened that he ended up in Najaf, a physician, a doctor, and was liked a lot by all the ulama who were living in Karbala. He says that now, the beauty of this person was that he never used to charge people who used to come to him for treatment. From those who were well off, a little bit was taken just for his day-to-day needs. He says that once I was in my surgery and a lady comes for treatment. She was diagnosed with leprosy. And in those days, and even today, there is no cure for it. He says, there is no cure for you, sorry to say. Says that I was amazed at the waqar, at the greatness of this lady, that she stood without uttering any word. She wants to walk away from the clinic. Another person sitting in that clinic says that, do you know who she was? Says, I don't know. Says, she is a Sayyidah from India, a very wealthy lady. She and her husband, they've moved from India to Karbala, and all their wealth they are spending to build the shrine of Abu Abdullah. The doctor says, can you call her again? He says that I knew and I was certain that there is no cure, there is no shifa. Just to keep the heart of that mu'minah, that Sayyidah, he said, I just gave a blind shot. And I wrote a prescription and said to her that this is the prescription, take this medicine. Maybe inshallah, he has some grace and you will be granted with shifa. Although he says, I knew that nothing can be done. She takes the prescription, thanks the doctor and says that after how many days do I see you again? Maybe a week or 2 weeks. She comes, says that when she returns, not a trace of that disease which existed in her was present. He was amazed that how did this happen? A twist takes place over here. Says that after a while, this doctor, this noble person, he has a dream, someone telling him, 40 days from now you are to depart and you will die. Says that, I was just carrying out my tasks as I did every day. Nearer to the 40th day, suddenly I get fever, severe temperature, and I fell ill. And my health was deteriorating so rapidly that those around me, they were certain that I'm about to die. Now the Sayyidah is informed that he is very ill. Takes permission from her husband, comes to nurse this doctor. There's a book called Arshiyan Farsh Nishin. If you go on irfan.ir, ERFAN.ir, and select the English language, this book has been translated recently into English and I don't know what the name is. It's in Farsi, it's Arshiyan Farsh Nishin, a beautiful book. Whosoever wants to know about Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, this is a very good source. Mentions this over there. Says that this lady, she takes permission from her husband, comes to look after this person for a few hours every day, this doctor, and says that this health is just deteriorating and everyone around him says that he is departing now. Face towards Qibla and slowly they want to cover his face. Those around him say that he is cold now, it's almost dead. She just rushes straight to Abu Abdullah al-Husayn's shrine. Pleads, Hussein, I want my dad back. I want him back. She faints. Over here, says that after a while, this doctor who was almost dead, he opens his eyes. Says, what happened? Says, I saw the angels of death were present between me here. my life was being seized, my feet were numb, they were dead, and this soul had come all the way up to my chest, and it was that final portion from there that life is taken away. Says that, what did you do when she comes back to see the doctor? What did you do? Says, I went to Abu Abdullah, I cried. Says, I don't understand what it is. I want my dad back. Hussein, you have to do something. And then they say that the instructions of Allah are that he has to die. Says, but I have sought refuge in Hussein. Hussein will not say no. Says that as a result of that pleading of that Sayyidah, Allah increased the life of this doctor by 30 years. That is Hussein. Safinatul Hussein awsa wa asra. No matter what a person is, what wrong he has done, a solution can be found from Hussein. Or for example, if you look into this tragedy of Karbala, the sacrifices that were given on this day and in this land, they too cannot be mentioned. Yesterday we talked a little bit about Zainab Kubra. In Ziyarat Nahiyatul Muqaddasa, we've got a phrase which says that our Imam says, I cry twice a day, morning and night, and I shed tears of blood. In one of these visions, when Imam was asked, who do you cry for? Yabna Rasulullah, is it for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein you cry? He says, no. Is it for Imam Zainul Abidin that you cry? Says no. Ali Akbar? No. Abbas? No. Then for who do you shed those tears twice a day, every day, tears of blood? He says, that's for my aunt Zainab. The atrocities, the masa'ib, the pain which she saw, no one did. Because everyone on that day of Ashura came to an end after a day's fight, battle. But it was her who continued all the way through. One of the sacrifices which she gave, it's the sacrifice of her two sons. That is, on that day, the two sons, they come and say, Mother, Uncle Hussein, he will not let us fight. He will not allow us to go to the battlefront. She says, go and plead. Doesn't accept. She comes herself. Says, Hussein, let them go. And when the two sons, Aun and Muhammad, they set off for the battlefront, they come to the mother, and when they say farewell to her, she says, I don't want to see you alive. You have to give your life for Hussein. Sacrifice is given, and when she is informed that they have been martyred, no change. As if a duty has been done. Nothing great. And after the tragedy of Karbala, when the heads were being distributed, they find that there are two heads which are left there as lost and found property, which no one to mourn for. They come and say that, whose heads are these? Don't they have any relatives? Anyone to cry? Says they are Aun and Muhammad, Zainab's son. They come to Zainab and she's got someone else to cry for, and that is Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. A year from the tragedy of Karbala, we find that the two sons of Muslim, again, two young, beautiful sons, Ibrahim and Muhammad, they too also have a similar fate. After the tragedy of Karbala, now Muslim is martyred in Kufa. The sons are aware of his martyrdom. But these two sons of Muslim, they do not know that Abu Hussein, he has been martyred. They are in captivity in the prisons of Ibn Ziyad, la'natullahi alayhi. For more than a year, they are there in the prisons. Instructions given to the jailer are that to be harsh, to be severe on them. No good meal to be given, no cold water must be given to them. Noble sons, noble children. They used to make up the time of prayers by the coming and going of the jailer. That when the night when he came to give that bread to them, they found out it's night and it's time for their prayers. One day the two sons, the two brothers, the younger one says to the elder that we must tell this jailer who we are to find us a way out so that we can go to Medina. It's a year now that we're over here. If we just stay in this prison, we're going to decompose. That night when the jailer comes, he says, the elder brother says to the jailer that, do you know who Muhammad is? He says, what question is that? He is our prophet. I believe in him. I bear witness that he is the apostle of God. Then they say that, do you know who Ja'far is? Says Ja'far Tayyar, the brother of Prophet. We know, and that Ja'far Tayyar, the title was given by the Prophet to him for that sacrifice which he gave, that in the heavens Allah, instead of the two hands of his, he will give him two wings so that he can fly in the heavens. That Tayyar was the title given to him, to Ja'far. Says, yes, I know him. Says, do you know Aqil? Do you know Ali? He says, yes, I know all of them, but why are all these questions? Then they say that, do you know Aqil? He says, yes. He says, we are the sons of Aqil. We are the household of the Prophet. Show us the way to Medina. The moment they say this to the jailer, he falls on the feet of the two sons. Says, why did you not tell me before that I've been so harsh, so tough, so severe on you? And then he says, okay, I'll show you the way to Medina, but be very careful, move during the night and hide during the day. He shows him the way, shows them the way. And when the two brothers, they set off, the jailer rushes behind them. Says, one request from you two, household of the Prophet. Says, what is it? Says, the request is that I know that because for this crime that I have done, and that is freeing you two sons, I will definitely be killed. But the promise I want from you is that you swear an oath that on the day of judgment, you will mediate. You will grant that shafa'at to me and find salvation for me. They say, okay, we promise. We won't enter the heaven, but with you. That is that household of the Prophet. Now the two brothers, they set off. They walk all the way, and it is the time for Fajr prayers. The call of Azan is heard, and there an old lady who was present, she says, now during the night they meet this old lady. And they say to her, can we find refuge in your house tonight? We'll leave in the morning. Says, who are you? Says, we are the orphans of Muslim. Says, okay, I can take you to my house, but the problem is that my son-in-law Haris, he is a soldier of Ibn Ziyad and one of those evil personalities. He never comes to my house, but if he comes, you are in danger. They say, let's be hopeful he may not come. She brings them, hosts them, feeds them, gives them clothes, place to rest. And that night he comes, Haris. Knocks at the door, says, the mother-in-law, who are you? Says, it's me. Open the door. Says, where have you been? Says that the sons of Muslim, they have fled away from the prisons. And I've been searching every house in Kufa to find them. Because Ibn Ziyad, he has placed a big reward. 1,000 dirhams for each, 2,000 for the two. And I want them dead. I want their heads. I want to get the reward. She says, leave them. Let them live. Why do you want to pollute yourself with this grave sin? Opens the door, he comes in. Now in the night, one of the two brothers, the younger ones, he gets up crying. Says, I just saw the Prophet and my father in my dream. Saying, my grandfather, the Prophet, he says to my father that very soon your sons will be with you. And then the elder brother says, I saw exactly the same dream, and the two start crying. Upon hearing the cry of the two sons, Haris is woken up. He comes and he finds, I've been searching every town, every house, and they are in my house. Ties them. Early in the morning, takes his slave and his son by the river. The lady, she says, don't do that. Don't commit that grave crime. Leave them, let them go. He says, no, I won't. Takes his slave and his son by the river. Instructs the slave to behead the son. Now before that, there is a conversation which takes place between the sons and Haris. They say that, leave us, let us go to Medina. Whatever prize Ibn Ziyad is to give you, they did not know Hussein has been martyred. They say, my uncle Hussein, he will give much more to you. He says, no, that cannot be possible. Says, okay, take us alive to Ibn Ziyad and see whatever he says. If he wants to kill us, let him kill us. You don't. He says, that too is not possible. Then says, okay, the two brothers say, okay, now that the doors are shut before us, allow us to say some prayers before we die. He says, okay, permission is granted, but let's see what these prayers are going to help you. They offer 4 rak'at of prayers each. He then instructs that slave to behead the son. The elder son, when the slave comes closer to him, he says, are you from Africa? He says, yes. How do you know that? He says, my grandfather's muazzin in Medina who gave the azan was from Africa, was Bilal Habashi. And who are you? We are the household of the Prophet. He throws the sword, dives into the river and was never seen again. Says, I will not pollute myself with this sin. Says to the son, you go and kill them. Mother shouts, if you do that, I will never forgive you. The son also flees away. He himself beheads the elder brother first, throws the body in the river. Beheads the second brother, throws the body in the river, and comes to Ibn Ziyad. Now Ibn Ziyad, upon seeing the two heads, says, what did you do? Why did you kill them? How could you have killed them? These beautiful children. Says, what did they do? Says, they said their prayers and after that they had a dua. Says, tell me what was that dua? Says, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, Ya Halim, Ya Ahkam al-Hakimin, Uhkum baynana wa baynahu bil-haq. The two sons, they had said that, addressing to Allah, that judge between us and our killer, that is Haris bil-haq. Ibn Ziyad, who is himself a ruthless, a cunning, an evil existence, says that take him to the river. Kill this Haris near that place where the two sons were killed, but never pollute the blood of this mal'oon with the pure blood of those two sons. End of that mal'oon in that wretched way. So someone who is associated to Karbala, someone who is with the household of Abu Abdullah lives forever. وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. They are alive. They are always alive. And their rizq and sustenance is given to them by their Lord. So all these tragedies that we find, there is someone to mourn, someone to cry, someone to be there. But for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, there is no one. A time comes when there is no one to help Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Riwayat, they say that when Abu Abdullah, on that day, he was wounded so much that when he breathed from his armor, it bled. From the armor it bled. There wasn't any part of the body which wasn't wounded. Imam falls to the ground. That Mal'oon is seated on the chest of the Imam. And he beheads the Imam alayhi salam. Ala la'natullah ala al-qawm al-zalimin. Wa saya'lamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalabin yanqalibun. Allahumma ahyina hayata Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Wa amitna mamata Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma arzuqna fid dunya ziyarata Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Wa fil akhirati shafa'ata Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma ajjil fi faraji Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Matam Hussain.